Coming up on this week's episode of the Xennial Odyssey podcast.
Actually, I'm going to give this to you right now, live on the air, and you're going to tell people my title. Do you know that my screenplay Blacklisted is about them?
Really?
Yeah. You remember, not to circle back, but when I did that Chris D'Elia interview, way back, what did I say to people after it? And next time I'm interviewing you,
All right, everybody, welcome back to the XOP, the Xennial Odyssey podcast. Again, much like the last episode where we had Sherry Lynn Nicholas on and we interviewed her about her being a jack of all trades, we have the wild card of wild cards for you. Coming out of Parts Unknown is our good friend here, Mr. Remy. I will turn it over to him. Remy, welcome to the Odyssey.
Thank you. I'm excited right now. This is my first opportunity to get out of my basement. No, thanks, Bob. You know, you and I go way back. For people that don't know what I tell people, actually, I'm going to give this to you right now, live on the air, and you're going to tell people my title.
Okay.
You're ready for the American Psycho,
Remy's pull
right?
out. I'm going to guess you're going to pull out a business card.
You know that this is literally the American Psycho business card.
Yeah.
Now, wait till you touch this fucking card.
I've always wanted to
tell
touch.
people what I am.
All right. Oh shit, that has the feel.
Dude,
that is professional.
Oh, I'm
Exactly.
a dead.
All right. I'm going to read everything except for his number, on the top right corner, Rem Pop Inc.
That's just a thing I
Professional
made up.
Madman.
It's not even a real thing.
In the middle, we got at Remy Carriero, a human person.
That's the title.
Follow me on the socials or else. Yeah. And then I turned it over and it says,
I got you.
What did you expect back here? Question mark.
Dude, I expected that movie.
You're not getting this back, buddy.
No, please don't, man. I genuinely expected, because people always flip a business card.
Yes.
And so I always double side them. And when I was double siding this one, I just had to ask.
Yeah.
What are you guys looking for back here? A candy bar? But yeah, basically, I'm a professional idiot. That's really what I tell people. I'm a writer and I do histrionics and people tolerate it.
How long have you been a writer? And I will keep talking until you're done taking that sip.
Thank you, sir. I got to learn to drink further away from the mic. I love that sounds like a gong.
Yeah.
Like, let's start a new bit. It's weird because technically my whole life, and I was just a weird little artistic kid, and my siblings weren't so much. And so I would say stuff to my mother that I guess she found poetic, and she'd write it down. And so there's some things I had said, and there was this, I came in once because my brother and sister were kind of dicks. That's the word I'm saying.
No, I just click up. And I was going to say, now just click a button and upload this.
Yeah, they did. But I remember I was outside, so I was young as 3. I was outside playing in the snow by myself. It was fun for 5 minutes. And fun snow and torturous interactions between humans. I remember coming inside and telling my mom, I was like, loneliness is when you're playing in the snow and you have no one to laugh with. Now, I was just being a emo kid, I was like 7. But she wrote that down and sent it into Reader's Digest, and I won an International Poetry Award for Children.
Wow.
Yeah, which was...
I was going to say that's deep.
No,
deep.
And it wasn't. In hindsight, it summed up the rest of my life as this person sitting in a window longing, But she saw that as an opportunity, and I didn't know I was a writer until she gave me the award. And I saw my poem in the magazine. Wow. And I remember just being like, oh, I can do something. This is interesting. So I just wrote my whole life, but until the internet, I don't care what anybody tells you. It was kind of an impossible job to get.
I agree with that, because that brings it back around to why I wanted to start this podcast and about Xennials. And I know that there's conflicting things. Some people are like, please, it's a participation trophy for millennials and all that. But to me, there's a reality that for people who are born between that like late 70s and early 80s. Like I feel distinct, and I don't feel a part of either of these generations that are now make up the majority of our country as adults. And that's a great point, because you know what, they call it, we had an analog childhood. We did,
and
100%. That means that there was no there wasn't as much 24-hour news cycle. There wasn't the internet. And just, it was a different time. And yes, like you were saying, I mean, that's a huge deal to have a parent put something into Reader's Digest and win an award for it, regardless of age, regardless of whatever. And that's cool. And I can only imagine how that made you feel when you saw that.
Yeah, it was because I didn't know I was doing anything.
Yeah.
She was like, "Oh, you do this thing." And, you know, when I grew up, that very thing, when you're younger, you get mocked for that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So as a weird little artistic kid, but I just kept writing. I mean, I was the dude when I was like 19, 20, and I was working at a couple different factories. I worked at like a sheet metal factory, cutting down plates of sheet metal. I lost my thought. That's going to happen sometimes.
When you were in your late teens and early 20s, you were working in warehouses, and you were
okay. And so I would even back then, I would carry a notebook, and like at lunch, at my breaks, I'd be like in the corner, like writing poetry in my notebook. This dude with long hair. Now, I thought I was an idiot, but like I came to find out, like the women I worked with, I didn't find this out till I stopped. They were all like, "Oh, he's dreamy because he like." Just eats yogurt and writes poetry.
He's deep.
Listen, I ate yogurt because I had no money.
Yeah.
I wrote poetry because I didn't have food on break and I needed to kill the time. Mm-hmm. But so it was a passion for a long time. And the only thing it truly benefited me with, honestly, was women. Truthfully. Because even young, I was like, okay, I can use words, and words are powerful.
All right. So I think that's a good place to stop, where we can play a song. And as always, you know, Remy will get to pick a song, and we'll come back. We could talk about it or not. But that being said, I mean, that's a great teaser, because we're going to talk about him as a writer. We're going to talk about where his career is going, and you know, if he wants to share with us where he anticipates his career going.
Oh, hold on, man. Someone's at the door. We're going to lose the audience on that bit pretty quick, so I won't do it more than twice. Now I'm excited, man. And can I say, right now we're transitioning to Virginia, Reel Around the Fountain, 7-minute cut, Built to Spill. That's what we're doing, because that fucking song.
All right, so we'll come back. We'll talk a little more. And we're going to take a little break and, you know, maybe fix our equipment if we need to. But again,
my mic just went loud.
Better the mic than other things. Yeah. But again, you know, you're listening to the XOP, the Xennial Odyssey podcast, with Bobby Rocks and Remy.
Kamikaze, blinded by the show lights, paparazzi. They know I'm a gold mine. Everybody know me where I go. Why suicidal? Hanging with the low. I'm a legend. I'm a fixer, painting portraits. Get the picture, like the paper, not the swisher. I'm your elder. Call me Mister. Call me Mister. Y'all should probably do the math. I done been to hell and back. Remo had me in the ass. White boys hitting dabs. Went from bummy to your girl probably bumpy. Thoughts of things, turn a 5 to dime. Nothing to something. It's a classic tale like The Alchemist. Mama would be proud of this. Wonder where I'd be without this shit. Probably down and out and shit. Be easy just like the alphabet. Might wanna reroute your shit. You ain't about this shit. No, you don't want these problems like calculus. How to master the bad ones, I done passed them up. She just fell in love with me and I ain't even had to fuck. Kamikaze, blinded by the show lights, paparazzi. They know I'm a gold mine. Everybody know me where I go. Why suicidal? Hanging with the low light. Kamikaze, blinded by the show lights, paparazzi. They know I'm a gold mine. Everybody know me where I go. Why suicidal? Hanging with the low light. I be gemmed out, zenned out, almost put the pen down. Now they focus lens when I hop up out the Benz now. I got my ends up, every move's a wins up. My life's a movie, so I turn the suspense up. God, hallelujah, we made it. Thank gotta learn patience. I was all in my feelings, like get me out of this matrix. I was jumping on buildings, labels act like they ain't see. Now when they hit my lineup, I just act like I ain't me. Fix God, no it can't be. Offer one, I demand three. Copycats, you are not me. My girl call me Poppy. Hand sand for you dap up. Whole city getting lapped up. Soon as we knew it was possible, then we knew we had it wrapped up. Kamikaze, blinded by the show lights, paparazzi. They know I'm a gold mine. Everybody know me where I go. Why suicidal? Hanging with the low lights. Kamikaze, blinded by the show lights, paparazzi. They know I'm a gold mine. Everybody know me where I go. Why suicidal? Hanging with the low lights.
And we're back.
And we're back. Yes.
I didn't mean to steal that from you.
Okay, so I know you do more than writing, though, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Here's the thing. I do everything that's not useful. So, yeah, I play music. I play instruments. Too many. It doesn't do me any good.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. It's incredibly fulfilling. But, like, yeah, art, painting, music, comedy, directing, writing, screenplays, like, I'm nothing if not constantly trying to not be a failure. You know, and I didn't realize that till I got older. I was always like, oh, I'm just weird and I like to draw. No, when I got older, I was like, all right, all this stuff, I can use this now. You know, I can use it now. But I've always said, and I've said this to people, I'm a guy, I think this is on my LinkedIn too. I'm a guy who can do a lot of things, none of them incredibly well. So, but yeah, creativity, you know, my mother owned a used bookstore and her adoration was poetry, which is how she put that in me. And my dad was a hugely successful artist. So like, I was between those two things. And somehow, and like my siblings didn't get that, suckers. But like somehow I got my brother got my dad's full ability for art. And my sister did get my mom's full ability of like words and all that stuff. But I was lucky that I got to take from both of them. Yeah. You know, and no one in my immediate family plays instruments. No. Zero. So the fact that I gravitated toward picking up instruments by myself and taught myself them, I'm proud of that because but again, that was just me being like, I'm going to lose my mind if I don't get this stuff out. And
it sounds like it was you trying to fill time with something. You were trying to find things to fill your time with, trying to find hobbies because you didn't have anything and you didn't know what to do with the idle time.
Yeah. And it was like, you know, my parents divorced when I was in the 3rd grade and it got ugly. Yeah. So, I think from the get-go and some really dark stuff happens to every child. Some dark stuff happened to me. And so I think that the creativity was a way for me to channel some of that. And I also think that, like you said, the idea of, and I've been doing this for the last 3 weeks. If you can keep yourself busy enough, if stuff is kind of falling apart around you, you're less likely to bruise. Now you'll still deal with it later. It doesn't go away. But yeah, I think that keeping myself busy for me was, because I'll be transparent about this with everybody. I kind of want to be an advocate for this stuff, but it was to keep myself from going in my head and killing myself, you know? And I was like, okay, how can I use these dark and weird thoughts manifested into something that can be productive?
No, I feel you on that because I've personally, you know, self-disclosure here. I've been there in my life where, you feel like that. I think of, if I was to draw a parallel to like music, I'll use music for the example. I'm really good with just that. So let's go back to the 1980s. Let's go to Let It Be by the Replacements. Let's go to 16 Blue. In my opinion, nothing encapsulates what it's like to be a teenager emotionally like that song does. That song is just gut-wrenchingly depressing.
Can you help me with something real quick?
Yeah.
Paul Westerberg?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
That's why we're doing this show together.
Yep. And
he's so fucking good.
And another song, same album, buy the replacements, let it be. Unsatisfied. I feel like that is applied to me in so many times in my life. I think a lot of people, if not everybody, does this. We make mountains for ourselves, like mountains for accomplishments, or people have hyped things up in our lives. Like for me, it was like my father. My father, when he would describe things, my father was a very descriptive, and he would like kind of be like poetic about things.
Yeah,
and it didn't matter what it was. He was always like that.
I like that.
Yeah, but that I find when I would experience those things. They were not the same. They were not how they were described to me, and I would be disappointed. I mean, it would be my own experience, and so I started to notice that thing. And then it's one of those things, as I got older, I just kind of said, like, fuck it. Like, it's more about, I need to experience them with no expectations.
Okay, so, and not to interrupt, but I wanted to ask you, so is that something that you've ever addressed with him? Have you ever said, and it's not, if it's not my place, let me know, but that's what this podcast will be. Have you ever said, dude, you were a hype beast for everything, but the stuff you hyped me up for wasn't necessarily hype appropriate? Or is it just one of those things where you learned and you adjusted and evolved? I learned and I adjusted and I evolved.
But it will sadly have to be a regret I have, because my father passed away 3 years ago. So,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
That was, and then, and just so you know, he went out like he lived, like, very poetic and all that.
They always do.
My father, and I know I'm sidebarring here.
No, that's what everything's going to be. Go.
But my father was absolutely, my father was, he was born in 1948. He grew up in the flower child and the hippie ages, and he got himself lost in that lifestyle in a good way. I mean, I don't mean in a bad way.
No, I know what you mean.
But when he got to be the age of a father, like with my sister, my oldest sibling, like he really started to mellow down, but he had these like the philosophical things that he loved. And one of the things he loved to do was he didn't just love to read The Prophet by Khalil Gibran.
My favorite book.
He loved the Richard Harris spoken word.
It's because it's Richard Harris.
It's because it's Richard Harris doing The Prophet.
Reading Khalil, like every sentence in The Prophet can change your life if you read it properly.
I think my father went out like the Prophet did. If you think about, I'm just making figuratively speaking, of course.
Yeah.
What was his name in the? Did it begin with an M? The actual I wanted to say yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't even want to attempt it, because we both feel like we're not right.
So for anyone we've gone off base, and anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, The Prophet was written 100 years ago by a philosopher, Khalil Gibran.
Khalil Gibran, yeah.
Yeah. Was he from Lebanon? I think he was from...
You're looking at me to
I think he was from Lebanon. No, I think he was from Lebanon.
I believe so, yes. And by name, too, I think so. But.
Yeah. Basically, this man had been in exile, and he'd been waiting for a ship from his homeland to come. And when that ship finally came... he felt like he had been outcast by the people, and he was overcome with joy for the fact he could go home.
Yeah.
But then kind of like, maybe I should have gotten to know people. So the whole town basically is waiting at the dock for him. Mm-hmm. And they're apologetic that they weren't more open to him. And they know that he's a prophet, and he's someone who's wise and full of wisdom. And they're asking him, well, before you leave, can you just answer some of our questions? And so the book is written in the style of poetry. I mean, it is. And so then what follows is basically short stories, like, and then there's my father's favorite. It's probably the most famous, the one about children. Can you,
can I quote a line from that?
Yeah, I can. Can you, do you want to do it? I can do it in the Richard Harris voice now.
Quote your line. And if it's the one I was thinking, God bless you. And if not, we'll both do it.
Okay. So anyway, this lady introduced her children. It's like, speak to us of children. And then if you're listening to it on the Richard Harris version, it'd be like, your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of tomorrow. And though they come through you, they do not belong to you.
No, that was well done though. Yeah. For a minute, I thought I was sitting with a king. And I believe that the quote I like is literally a few stanzas later. And it's our... You are the bow from which your children are as living arrows sent forth.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Bob, this show's going to slap.
Yep. This is deep. We just got you deep. You didn't even know it.
I'm drowning over here.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I know I mentioned it a little bit before about that you do writing, and you've talked about that. But what are some other of the things you do now? I mean,
first off, yeah, I think that it's somewhat difficult. And I know you understand this. It's somewhat difficult to talk about yourself and not feel like you're masturbating.
Yeah.
You know? But for me, I decided, because I wrote for shit professionally, meaning like as work for about, it's been a decade. It's been longer than a decade, but it's been a decade professional, which is a dope run. And I always told myself that I wanted to do 1,000,000 words. From the get-go, I was like, I'm going to be done writing when I've published 1,000,000 words. Now, most people would think that's impossible, but Bobby knows how I work. Bobby saw me make a 500-page website in a year.
I did.
And each of those pages had 5 articles. And here's the big, you guys want to know? Listen, if you guys want to know how to game social media, here's how to do it. And this is 100% accurate. And I'm even going to set this up on my Snap as a video.
Is it 100% dead on balls accurate?
It's dead on ball. I was nervous to say that, but that's exactly what it is.
I'm never beneath or above making a My Cousin Vinny reference.
Oh, well, no. Of course. I'm never beneath or above,
Marissa Tomei.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kept thinking Aunt May, because that was such a strange inversion. Okay. So, if you want to game social media like I just did. So Bobby asked, what am I doing now? I left social media and I came back. And I came back so fucking hard. And I don't know how to explain it, but I told people on my socials 6 months ago something huge is coming. Mm-hmm. And I had this thing planned, and it was because I lost my website and I lost everything. Yeah. And no one hits twice. They just don't. It's not a thing that happens. But I decided I was going to, and I set the goal, and I thought it was going to take me 6 months, but it took me 2 weeks of just really hard work. But it's the idea of making myself into a brand, which I've always done. That's why my website had my name. Yep. It wasn't narcissistic. It was so people knew. But if you want to game the internet, it's content. No, it doesn't have to be the best content. That's everybody's problem. If you wait to make the perfect video, you'll never make shit. Mm-hmm. You flood Google with your shit. That's the hack. When I did my website, I knew that was it. So I had 500 articles. Now, 500 I think is an exaggeration. I think I had close to 100 when I launched the site. So there was content there. And then I wrote 2 a day, every day. I didn't take days off.
That was like a self goal. I'm writing 2 a day.
I never let myself go under 2. I just didn't. Even if I felt sick, I was whatever. It didn't matter.
For everyone out there, we're just rolling with technical difficulties. Oh, yeah. We're just going.
It sounded like I just took a shit.
I kind of asked the question if that was a goal of yours to write at least 2 times a day, and you were talking about sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 6.
Yeah, it was just, and the thing I learned early was, listen, to get a chance as a writer or blah, 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 influencer, which is a gross word, it's a blessing. And a lot of people don't get to do that. Many people who want to. So my thought was, if I have this opportunity right now, I would be a jackass to not work myself to death. And that's why the site got 500 million hits by the end, And I set the goal for the words, and I did 500,000 just on my site.
Wow.
Yeah. And so with all the other articles, finally, I was keeping tab, and I was getting there, In the last year, and I'd love to name drop clients because they suck, but I'm not going to. But writing just became prostitution.
Yeah.
I couldn't pitch an original idea. If I did, it was literally urinated on by editors who didn't have a clue of how the web worked. And it got to the point where I was working for these sites for 2 fucking weeks and being like, you're awful. Like, this is awful. How the fuck? Because my thing would be like, I was bigger than you are now alone. There's 50 of you, and you can't run a site with 50 writers. That to me is disgusting and sad.
Yeah.
So it got to the point when I was just telling all these people to fuck off.
Yeah.
Because the other thing about writing is you're kind of like, without a name, you're kind of treated shitty. They'll tell you you'll get paid when you get. It's kind of a you get paid when you get paid, and there are websites that'll hold you off for 2-3 months. You have to be on them, so it's exhausting, especially if you have multiple clients.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I just kept quitting the writing jobs. I was like, this is a fucking joke.
Yeah.
And I know Bob knows. One night, finally, it was like 2 a.m. and I just went with no idea I was going to do this. Popped on my LinkedIn and was like, retired.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I knew I had to because I'm like, you know what? Because I hit the 1 million and it was just, now it's gross. Now, and you know, Kate Beckinsale to bring up randomly, and we'll talk more later.
Yeah.
But I'd have to write these articles about her. And she's one of the most brilliant women on the planet. And my editors would really want to emphasize her sex because the underworld and
as they do with everybody.
As they do with everybody. And a lot of people don't realize that she's like Oxford educated, 159 IQ, absolutely brilliant woman. And I wouldn't do it. You know, and you'll get celebrity sites and they'll want you to write gross, stupid shit, man. They'll want you to write 500 words about, you know, Instagram model bending over. And it's like, what am I doing? So it got to the point where I was really frustrated with all of it. And I'm like, I always knew, because when I had my website, I didn't have a YouTube because I knew it wasn't time.
Yeah.
I didn't have the confidence for it. And I didn't fully understand the game. That's the other thing I did for the last 5 years is I watched 200 hours of YouTube. I watched the highest YouTubers and I took notes.
As a side, can I just shamelessly plug one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube?
Please do.
My Self-Reliance. Do you know what that is?
I don't think so offhand.
His name is Sean, and I'm sorry I don't remember his last name, but he professionally was like an outdoorsman, like videographer. Like he just loves nature and all that.
Yeah.
And he got the idea like 5 years ago to just go into the Canadian wilderness and
live out there.
Yeah.
I do watch
record
him.
Himself building a cabin and all that. And he posts shorts on there, and he said he recently is in the process of like building a new cabin because you know, society was encroaching on the one that he had.
Of course.
Yeah. And so he went a little further and he's in the process of that. And my wife doesn't get it. Like, but I'm like, this is relaxing and it's kind of cool. Like, yeah, he makes tons of money. But then on the flip side, there's Living Off the Grid with Jake and Nicole, which is, I get, I'm entertained by it, but clearly they are capitalistic. Like, and that's a difference. And they're living out in like the rainforests of British Columbia. Yes, people, it is a rainforest, even though it gets cold out there. Yeah. But yeah, I love doing stuff like that. And to me, they're just recording and
existing.
Yeah, and existing.
Yeah. There's a couple too. There's a lot of like Nordic people that do nature blogs and like they swim in ice ponds and shit. And it's just something about watching it is very therapeutic. It's very Zen-like.
Yep. I agree. Remy knows, and one of my big slogans, besides hashtag and hashtags, is no sacred cows. I do not believe in sacred cows. I believe, you know, you can look up to people, be famous or in your real life, and that's all fine. But idolizing them is you are setting yourself up for that. You're setting yourself up for the ultimate disappointment.
Celebrity worship is just repulsive.
Yep. Because, you know, if you ever had the chance to meet these people in real life, you would realize just everything that you had made them out to be is not.
You remember, not to like circle back, but when I did that Chris D'Elia interview way back, and what did I say to people after it? I said, dude's verbatim. Dude's a creep.
Yep.
Greasy slime bag. Brought my girlfriend at the time, beautiful girl, ginger, no soul. And I was interviewing 4 comedians. He was one of them, least funniest one in the room. Just so fucking into himself, legs strung over the chair, acting like it was a throne. Every time I turned around, trying to take my girl out in the hallway. And that shit I was laughing at him. And that's why I did a Vine where I was like, hey, can I interview you? And he thinks he's the shit. So he's like, yeah. Bro, Vines are 7 seconds. So I go over and I say, hey, everybody, this is Chris D'Elia. I'm about to do an interview. And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, sorry, Chris, we don't have time. And and you can see his fucking face drop, but I caught it too quick.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of my favorite vines I ever did but that's the thing. Bob's 100% true. Some of them will be amazing. It's rare, but yeah, celebrity worship it's a broken thing for broken people.
Yep. If there is any epitome of that to me, it is Corey Feldman.
Corey,
Speaking of cries for help, when he was that Good Morning America?
Dude, I don't even know if I can talk about that.
Yeah, that was I felt. I'm going to say it was painful, but when I say that, what I mean is, like, Corey, I felt your pain. I felt it come through, and that's like, and I'm sorry. Whatever it is, I didn't laugh at you. I didn't do all this stuff. I wanted to come through the screen and give you a hug. I did, and I'll be honest, like, I did.
I bet you we could get him as an interview. Do you know that my screenplay Blacklisted is about them?
Really?
Yeah. I can't talk about it on air. Yeah, it's a what if scenario if after the Corey who passed, the Corey that was left, instead of having the sort of pop music meltdown that he had, which was so sad and justified, he just went Robert De Niro. You know, Taxi Driver. And I had written this completely. I wrote the whole thing in 3 months, had a tiny stroke while I was writing it, not even joking. It was terrifying. And yeah, it's funny too, because it has unfortunately now, a lot of similarities with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
Yeah.
To an upsetting degree where people now would be like, he ripped up. No. I wrote my screenplay before that shit even had a trailer. But yeah, what if instead of him handling it as well as he did, because that's what he did.
Yep.
He just basically live streams for 72 hours while he loses his mind and does a bunch of coke, and then live streams going to, let's say, Barbie Heinstein's house.
Oh.
You know Barbie Heinstein?
I smell what you're stepping in. Yep.
Yeah. And what if he just and my favorite scene in the movie is when he's walking and he's going down the Hollywood Hills. Because at this point he's in a psychosis.
Yeah.
And like there's just, as he's walking down the middle of the street, he's just kind of dragging a fucking like piece of rebar. All the windows as he walks by are turning red on either side of the street. You know, because it's just he's hell and rage going to the house. And the exchange between those two was incredibly cathartic for me, having been through some shit. So I remember when I was done writing it, I fucking cried for days. But yeah, it was just the idea of that, because I people, again, Kanye and Corey, we need to do 2 or 3 episodes about male mental health. Kid Cudi's another one.
Yep.
Kid Cudi puts himself out there, and thankfully he's not as mocked. But man, it's like we have to normalize men. Like I did that TikTok of me crying this week. Did you see that shit? It was tough. It was really tough to do, and I was embattled about doing it. But I had an emotional moment. I saw some photos, some memories arose, and I had been living on camera for the past week and a half anyway. And I'm like, you know what? Everybody thinks that I'm the Joker. They don't understand that I'm playing this character. And it's working, but that's what I'm doing. So the cry video, man, was like, and I put it on YouTube too. And you know what? I promise you in like a year, I'll have 10 million comments making fun of me on there. But it felt important for me to be like, yo, y'all think I'm something? Here's me crying. Gentlemen, it's okay to cry. We have to normalize this shit again. Bob, it was an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to doing more of these with you.
Oh, Remy, as always, the pleasure is
next time I'm interviewing you, and you can be the uncomfortable one.
No, you can interview me, but I'm not going to be uncomfortable.
God bless you.
Again, thank you, Rem, and until next time, this Odyssey has come to a close, and we will see you on the next Odyssey. Take care.